Welcome to the Tao of Pizza, where we feature top logistics leaders, entrepreneurs, and supply chain innovators and share their inspiring stories with a holistic twist.
Mark Hiddleson here, host of the Tao of Pizza podcast, where I talk with top industry innovators in the warehousing, logistics, and supply chain business with a holistic twist. Before I introduce Milt Tandy, today's guest, this episode is brought to you by Specialized Storage Solutions. Listen, I've been in the logistics industry and storage industry for several decades. I know I don't look that old, but it's true. We provide industry-leading warehouse storage solutions nationwide. So basically, if you have a warehouse that needs racks, shelving, carts, conveyors, or mezzanines, we help with the design, engineering, installation, inspections, and repairs to help clients optimize their logistics operations. You know, Milt, sometimes people don't even realize that we can actually help with wire partitions and permit acquisition services. We take a holistic look at your entire business supply chain ecosystem to develop the resources for continually improving your operation. To learn more, visit Special Racks or give us a call at 707-732-3892. I even give my personal email out for podcast listeners. It's markhiddleson@aol.com. So if you're ready to take your warehouse and storage retrieval systems to the next level, shoot me an email. And I want to give a big shout out to Chris Murphy. We had a great conversation a few weeks ago, and we've got great feedback from that interview. So be sure to check it out. Well, today we're joined by Milt Tandy, who began his career at WireCrafters soon after graduating from the University of Louisville in 1980. WireCrafters is a leading manufacturer of both welded and woven wire partitions based in Louisville, Kentucky. They also have a Sparks, Nevada warehouse serving West Coast distributors. Milt's been with WireCrafters nearly 42 years. He was in sales and marketing for 4 decades before becoming president in 2020. He's a dynamic host of Mondays with Milt, a weekly series where he travels to different areas of the shop, his home, and occasionally out of state. He brings fun and a ton of product knowledge to his YouTube channel and other social media platforms. And if that's not wild enough, the first time he was ever in an airplane, he jumped out. Milt, welcome to the Tao of Pizza.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate you having me.
So I got excited when I found out you were a Louisville Cardinal. So are you, am I making any assumptions here? Are you a football fan?
Oh, I am. I do follow the University of Louisville, and I believe we've got a ball game coming up very soon with the football season underway now. So it's pretty exciting. Everybody's excited about
it. It is. It's an exciting time of the year. And I haven't had a chance to talk about football on this show. It is one of my passions. But so tell me about the time when you went to Louisville, and kind of what was it like in the 80s or late 70s, 80s?
Yeah, so when I was at the University of Louisville, it was my final senior season. It was very exciting because in 1980, the basketball team won the national championship. So as a senior at the University of Louisville, I got to follow them all the way through, and that was a lot of fun. But, I was a communications major, and back then we did internships with the local TV stations. So I might be running camera or doing technical directing for one of the local news shows. So it was a different time. There wasn't any laptops on any desk. We wrote everything out with an ink pen. So it was pretty exciting back then.
Yeah, that is. I look at even on some of the presentations I do. I went to college in the 90s, and I like to show images of the computers and typewriters that I typed up my term papers on.
Right.
And IBM Selectrek was top of the line if you didn't have a word processor. So how did that lead to starting a career in the manufacturing business?
I guess my story is kind of unusual. A lot of times you find in the material handling industry that it's a lot of second and third generation people. My story is a little different. I was working at a little food mart right down the street from WireCrafters, actually kind of around the corner. I never knew WireCrafters existed, but the gentleman at the time that was the president of the company, he would come into the little food mart and he would get, gas, or he would buy a soft drink. And he would always ask me what I was doing, how school was going. I never knew who he was. And this went on for several years. And then one day I told him, I said, I just graduated from the University of Louisville. I'm looking for a job. And he handed me his card and said, I'm the president of the company around the corner. Why don't you come down and talk to me? I've got a sales position open. So, yeah, he had a sales position open because he had one guy that needed a little bit of help. So with a college degree in hand, 1980 was kind of a tough year. The economy wasn't really going well. So I took the job thinking, I just need a job. It was $2.90 an hour. And with a college degree, I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot and see what happens. And hell, I've tripled my salary since then. So I'm pretty excited.
You should do a series on how to triple your income.
In 42 years,
Yeah, that's great. That's a great story. I remember, I started working when I was young, and but I didn't start paying taxes until I was 12, and that was 1980, and I was 82, and I think I was washing dishes at the bakery, but it was like $2.20 something cents, $2.35, and then they took out taxes.
Yeah.
So that's great. And so so he was the president of the company. That's a great story. So did you have any background in sales, or what were those early days like? Did you?
It was the early days of WireCrafters was, when we look back and start talking about it now, because there's a couple people that are still here that were with me in those early days. There wasn't a computer in the building. We made probably our first Excel sheet was actually on the chalkboard, where we would put the job numbers up and we would check them off as they went through departments so we could tell people what their ship date was. We probably invoiced in about a 10-day period. I probably invoiced what I did my first year or two starting here. So it's been an amazing story of the growth that we've had. It's not all due to the inflation we've recently had. We've added a few orders in the meantime, but it's been, yeah, when you think of not having a computer in the building, so when people would want a wire partition cage, they would call us on the phone and describe it to us. And you really learn to listen, which is very important for a salesperson. So you had to listen and understand as you're making a quick sketch of what they want. And then you would give them a price, and then mail the quotation to them. And if the sketch was wrong, they'd call you 4 days later and say, wait a minute, this isn't right. But it would take 4 days to find out.
Yeah, I remember. So when things had really sped up, I started in the industry in the late 90s. We really sped things up because we had a fax machine.
Right.
So they started faxing. We faxed in series. We had the curly paper, and there would be, I worked at a distributor where there were 5 or 6 guys, and you would go to look at the fax machine to see if your quote came in. And
we had one of the first fax machines. Honestly, I think that was in the Louisville area, because we had a warehouse in Philadelphia, and we did not send him a fax until after 5 o'clock, because it would tie up the phone lines. And I can remember standing around the fax machine when we were sending him the first set of sheets of paper so he would know what to ship. And it took about 6 minutes per page to go through. And after he received a handful of pages, I remember him calling 30 minutes later and said, I got it all. And we were all excited. Man, this is a game changer.
It was a game changer.
Yeah, it really was.
It was. Yeah. And I mean, email, it was kind of the same way. I remember I worked for Ross Clark for years, and towards the end, email was coming in. That was early 2000. Everyone had email and stuff, but I was like, this is a fluke. So they used to print my emails out in the office and have it in a folder. And then every Tuesday I'd come in the office, I would get my email folder and see. And I'm like, man, these guys are sending emails. This stuff's not going to last. So I was wrong about that. It's taking 22 years, but they say TikTok or other stuff like that could be replacing a lot of email. So,
yeah, I can remember when we first took our approval drawings. So when someone gets a little bit more of a complicated layout, we would, we'll do an approval drawing, and they were always overnighted. So we were paying about $20.
whoa.
And there might be, at that time, there was probably 7 or 8 a day that were overnighting to people. And I can remember we sat down and said, do you think we can email these drawings? And we have saved a little money now doing that.
Yeah. That's great. So one of the things I was really impressed, Milt, we were doing a project and I went to the website because honestly, the last time I personally quoted a WireCrafters project, it was the one where you call on the phone and you get an expert on the phone and you kind of explain what's going on, because as a distributor, we're a general practitioner. We do dock equipment, we do racking, shelving, wire partitions is one of the things. And you were one of the early. I remember talking to you as an early guy. So we had to go into our customer as if we were the expert, but we'd always rely on you to give us the product knowledge. We know what are the right questions that we're asking and all that. And now you are at the cutting edge, because when I went to do that, I looked and I saw this Mondays with Milt YouTube thing, which I thought, I thought we were on the leading edge with the podcast. Because I don't know other distributors, and I say, man, Mondays with Milt, he's 2 or 3 years ahead of me. So where did that idea? How did that start? And tell me more about Mondays with Milt, because I've watched about 4 or 5 episodes, and it's just great for product knowledge. You're having fun, which for me, our rule number one is are we having fun? Even though we're working, let's have some fun here. Yeah.
Yeah, I think probably one of the first Mondays with Milt was in May of 2017. And I used to go into my marketing department every morning and sit down with the team and just discuss, what different things we could be looking at. And one of the guys when they would see me coming in the morning, it would be, okay, here comes Moments with Milt. And, they were all young enough, obviously, to be my children. So one day I was out on the floor. We thought we would, do a video. And David Fishburne, our marketing manager, he said, you know what, let's call this. Let's see if we can do this every week. And we'll just call it Mondays with Milt. And I said, well, that's, we can do it for a while, but we do wire partition.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of applications, but it's still just one product. So we stretched it out every Monday for about 3.5 to 4 years. And then recently we decided to go to every other week, because I'm just kind of running out of things to talk about. But we seem to find something new every time.
Yeah.
So just recently, if you watched any of them, we had a family vacation over in Ireland and Scotland. So while we were in Scotland, I got behind the bar with a guy, a young man that was the bartender in a neat little pub, and him and I did a Mondays with Milt from a bar in Scotland. So we try to have a little fun with it, but we try to give a little product knowledge at the same time.
Yeah, that's awesome, because that's sharing those experiences with your team and everything. That's we love travel too, and we're usually we're only traveling. We do travel for a lot of business. So tell me about what's the difference? I saw one of your videos was talking about when you walk into a distribution center, the opportunities for wire partitions, they're kind of everywhere. There's tool cribs, there's higher security areas. We do a lot in the project we're actually working on with you right now is for wine security, and somebody's basically taken standard pallet racking and put sliding doors on standard pallet racking. So what are some of those, and what makes the distributors? You sell mostly the distributors, right, or exclusively?
That's correct.
So what makes the difference? What are the distributors who are really, finding opportunities? Share some of the unique challenges or problems that they're solving with wire.
Yeah, I feel like over the past, I don't know, decade, the safety has become just a huge part of the material handling world. And what we have found, so many of our distributors sell pallet rack, and you're one of them. So we probably some 20-25 years ago, we introduced our wire mesh panels and we patented, trademarked the name rack back. So we put panels on the back of pallet rack to keep things from falling off. And for many years, people were using another product, a material type product, and it would catch something that was falling off the rack, but our product would prevent anything from falling off the rack.
Yeah.
So we really got into the rack back in a big way, and so many of our distributors are selling a lot of pallet rack. They look for that opportunity every time. At McDonald's, do you want fries with that? Well, when you're selling pallet rack, would you like a rack back panel? It's good for any active aisleway. We've also put a lot of doors on the front of the pallet rack, because many times the customer has items that he would like to keep safe and secure. If you don't ask him, he doesn't realize he can do that. So we can put both slide doors and double hinge doors on the front of the rack. So you can turn 1 or 2 or 3 bays into a secure storage unit. So that's been a big item for us. Probably what's been the biggest impact over the past few years is we started an automation division, and we are really pushing machine guards. So we're doing a lot of work around ASRS machines. We're doing a lot of robotic work cells. We now have 4 outside salesmen that just look for the machine guard, and they live around the country. We also have 4 outside material handling salesmen. So we've got people out there that they live in Northern California, they live in Hilton Head, South Carolina, and it's WireCrafter employees that are out there every day, just working with distributors on automation, machine guard, and also the pallet rack backing. We're doing a lot of work in data centers. So many of these data centers for the co-location sites, There's a huge need for wire partition, so it has only been growing and growing with all the different applications.
I noticed that was one of the things when I thought about, because we, we're doing the one, obviously we're putting the rack and in sliding doors on pallet rack, which is really nice because the rack's already there, you're already using it. So there's really no disruption to your operation. Oh, we'll just come and put doors on this and you just made it secure area. The rack back is something that we are going to do a lot more of, because especially now the trend is with warehouses, it's a lot more picking because it's shipping smaller shipments directly to consumers. And so there's a lot of people picking in areas where you've got racking over the pick module, and that, it's a safety issue because you got people with a forklift on one side, and on the other side, there's people, pulling orders by hand. And then for the wine storage, we also do 2-tier, catwalk pallet racking. And so you can create individual lockers. So I've seen that there's places here where we're in the Napa Valley. I didn't know. Did I tell you we were in the Napa Valley? I don't know if I shared that, but
I think I knew that.
you knew that.
Yes.
Is that yeah, we're just going to create, people do it a lot of different ways, but I was looking at your website and the solutions are so clean. It was basically different people, individual lockers on the racking system.
Right.
So
yeah, that application, we haven't seen too much of that beyond the West Coast. We've done a few jobs coming this direction, but it is amazing when we tell people that we provide wine storage lockers for those people that want to have access to their wine 24/7, and they have so many cases or bottles of wine, they don't have room in their homes. They just kind of look at you with a funny look, like people are spending, $100, $200 a month to store their wine in a storage unit. And I'm like, yeah, it's a big business, especially on the West Coast.
yeah, and it's a big business here because there's only I think Kentucky has some unique shipping laws, which makes sense to have a storage locker on the West Coast. But it's also the weather. It's really expensive to ship things, and wine, they normally ship it in just over the road containers. They're not reefers or temperature controlled. So there's certain times of the year where you can't really ship wine from here to there. So people they'll store their wine here in the months that it's too hot to ship it. And then we have a lot of different clients in the wine industries, but there's some people that curate other people's collection and then they'll just ship it to them when they want it. So that they've got all the systems in place for people. They can track their inventory online of what their wine is. There's even one that tells you the value. It's like a little stock market a deal that tells you what your wine is worth, but all of it needs to be secure because obviously it's a lot of money. When I started doing the math and I said, okay, even if it's $100 a bottle, there's 12 bottles in the case, it's $1,200 a pallet. There's 50 cases on a pallet. It starts to add up.
It adds up.
It adds up pretty quick.
Now in Kentucky, of course, we're the bourbon capital of the world. We don't have a lot of bourbon storage as far as for 24/7 usage because we drink it fairly quickly. So there hasn't been a great need for that.
Yeah. Yeah, you drink it fast enough. A lot of people find out I'm from Napa Valley, and they always ask me if I'm in the wine business, and I say mainly on the consumption side.
Yes, that's right.
Which we do a little bit. We actually do quite a bit with wineries because there's so much of it around here. It's also not just personal use. A lot of the wineries have higher end collections that they want to, like large format bottles, right. 1 liter, 2 liter, 3 liter, and they want to keep those secure. So I'm looking forward to getting this Napa Valley secure, Milt. We've done a good job, but there's a lot more work to be done here.
Well, we've provided our wire partition to attach to the pallet rack for the type of wine storage you're talking about. But we have filled up buildings with just wire partition lockers where it's a different design. They're not using pallet rack. So it can be done both ways. The big difference is when we provide storage lockers for like condominium storage, typically the shelf needs to hold about 300 pounds max. If people are doing like a double tier type storage unit. But for the wine storage, we have to really beef up the shelves. We typically rate them at about 1,000 pounds per shelf due to, the cases of wine that are going to be stored upon them. So it's a very interesting market.
Yeah. And people don't realize the weight of, we just did a tour a few weeks ago in a wine cave, actually the oldest wine cave in Napa Valley. And it was champagne bottles, and they were stacking them in the cave, probably about 8 feet high. And they said you couldn't do that with wine bottles. The only reason they can stack it that high is the champagne, because if you stack wine and if you get about 4 feet high, it's too much weight. It'll crush the bottles.
Oh, okay.
I didn't even realize that. I would just think you could stack them like bricks as high as you could stack them.
Yeah.
So, and I watched, that's one of the videos that I watched where you guys actually loaded it and then you left it to see if there was any deflection.
That's right.
In your system.
Yes.
So, and you can do those 2-tier with like a stairs and a catwalk. Have you built them?
That's right. Yes.
You have. So there's actually I'm going to have to write that on notes of other things to talk about Milt, because there's some opportunities. Those storage condos are really popular, and we're doing storage platforms in some of them. And I think the 2-tier storage is just way more efficient than a platform, because even if you put a platform, you still have to have the shelves, you still have to have security. So that's a great. I want to learn. We're gonna get some quotes on those.
Okay.
And I didn't realize you could go 2-story with those, because I thought, I looked at it in. So you just go too high with the shelf, and then there's like a catwalk with plank.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm not building the platform or the catwalk. I'm building a 2-story or a double tier storage locker. So it's going to be about 90 inches tall with a divider shelf in the middle. And then you have a door above and below it. So people can access either the bottom half or the top half.
So you can split it into 2. Yeah.
Right.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to ask you what made, and I'm making an assumption, you've been there for 42 years, but WireCrafters had to be a great place to work, to stay there. Either that or you're a glutton. So you tell me which one it is, and why is it such a good, has to be a great place to work.
I think it started off, 2 kids and a mortgage. So that that's what makes the best salesperson.
Yeah.
Find somebody with 2 kids and a mortgage, and you'll probably hang on to them for a while. But no, when I started at WireCrafters, and it's still owned by the same family, the Debo family has owned this company since it began in the mid '60s. So we're just over 55 years now, and I've been here for the majority of that. There's a handful of us that have between 40 and 45 years here. It's been a very good family atmosphere. The owner of the company, Steve Debo, he still comes in weekly. He's still very much in the know of what's going on. He promoted me to president a few years ago so that he could, take a step back. That's worked out well. Even though it happened about 2 to 3 months before COVID hit, so we had a whole new group of challenges when that came. But like I say, it's been just a very good atmosphere. Trying to keep that family culture has been really hard over the past year and a half. because we've added probably 100 employees in about the last 18 months. And whenever you grow that much, when the business just grows so quickly, you really have to struggle to keep that culture in place. And we've had our problems doing that, but you know, I try to walk the shop floor as much as I can every day. We have over 225 employees, so we've grown quite a bit. We're in about 250,000 square feet, and we've got a 70,000 square foot building behind us that we've owned for many years, and the tenants will be out of there within the year, and we'll be moving into that one, you know, adding that to it. So we'll be over 300,000 square feet this time next year. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, so it's 300,000 square feet. It's 225 employees, and still the goal is to maintain that family culture.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very tough. This past weekend, we bought several hundred tickets for our professional soccer team we have in Louisville. So we had a lot of the employees went to the game. We all went together. At the end of next month, we'll have a family day at the Louisville Zoo. So we'll have all the families at the zoo next month. So we just, it's a work in progress.
Yeah, you're gonna have 400 or 500 people. You're gonna be taking over that zoo. You can rent the whole zoo. Nice. So I also noticed, and I don't know anything about horses or horse racing, but I saw one of the videos and I didn't watch it, but do you have a horse at Churchill Downs?
I do. I went in with about 20 other guys, and we all put up a little bit of money and bought a horse. We think he could be the first horse that has came in ninth 4 times in a row. I don't know many that have done that.
That's your claim to fame.
Yes, not every horse can do that.
Yeah.
But his name is paid in full. We call him Piffy for short. Right now, he's got a bad hoof, and they're working on that so he can race again. Maybe he'll come in 7th or 8th. Hell, who knows?
No.
But it's been an interesting little gamble with a group of guys. So it's been fun. Churchill Downs is very close to WireCrafters. It's only a couple miles away. So we have a lot of distributors that come to town. We have a membership at the Turf Club within Churchill Downs. So we're there quite often. The horses run about 3 months a year. Actually about 4 months a year. They're in town running. So, you know, we invite a lot of people in and take people to the Kentucky Derby. So we really try to enjoy as much as we can between the horses and the bourbon industry. It's a good place to be located.
Yeah. The only thing I know about the Kentucky Derby is that Hunter Thompson wrote an article about it it made him famous in the 70s. And honestly, I haven't even read that. I just know. So when is I should know when is the Kentucky Derby?
It's always the first Saturday in May.
First Saturday in May.
Yes.
So it's like another 9 months. We got 9 months to go. So first Saturday in May. And so what's it like? It's not just the day, it's like the Super Bowl, right? It starts a few days ahead of time, doesn't it?
It does. You know, it used to be that it would just kind of start with the day before, which is called Oaks Day. And the big race, there's always about 12 to 14 races, but the big race on Oaks Day is for the fillies, for the female horses. And that's your top fillies, in the country are going to run that day. But now what happened on that's on Friday. What happened is so many of the school teachers would call in sick and go to Oaks Day that about 15, 20 years ago, the school system just made that one of their holidays.
Yeah.
So that was always the day that all the locals came out. Well, now it seems that the out-of-towners like to go Friday and Saturday. So now we have Thursday is called Derby. So Derby is when you have a lot of the locals. Now the schools have not shut down yet on Derby, but I'm anticipating that that's going to happen to where they're probably going to be all Thursday and Friday.
Oh, nice.
But between those, and the horses run all week, but between those 3 days, you're probably looking at about 350,000 people will be there. In order to clean up the facility in between days, they will hire every high school athletic team that's out there. Every high school, football, baseball, basketball, lacrosse, all of those kids are out there with brooms and bags and dustpans, and they get them out there at 7 o'clock at night, and by midnight, it's all cleaned up and ready for the next day. And it's a good fundraiser for those schools. So we take a lot of pride in the Kentucky Derby, no question about it.
Yeah, and that cleaning up is that's a job that needs to be done. It's funny, the president of the company, a lot of times those are the jobs that I'm doing. There's a lot of and I think that's a great way to teach kids. I mean, somebody's got to clean it up and show up, and you're doing a fundraiser and you're making a contribution, and when you start, it looks like a disaster. I've seen these events. They have a concert here in town where it's a similar thing. It's 100,000 people over 3 days. And you look, when people walk off and you see what's left behind, well, people must just take their stuff. I mean, we take our stuff and put it in the garbage, but a lot of people must just finish it. And it's like those commercials in the 70s, like, don't litter, right? Yeah. Show the guy driving and just throwing the McDonald's bag out the window.
Right.
Like, we don't do that anymore, but at a festival, for some reason, people just go wild, right?
Yeah. I think they might drink too much. I don't know.
And then you forget. Yeah, sometimes they end up throwing their cell phones, everything else out the window too. So I have to ask you, I said in your introduction that the first time you were ever in an airplane, you jumped out. So you got to share with us what that experience was like and what happened.
Well, I was 16 years old, and I was born in a family where there wasn't any plane traveling. I can assure you of that. But the high school that I went to, they would have what was referred to as free-form week. And all the students, over like a 3-day period, you had to sign up for all these different activities. You could learn to play pinochle, you could roller skate, you could go on museum tours. There were all kinds of things, and you had to fill up your schedule for like 3 days. Well, there was a handful, somebody offered, I don't know who, skydiving. And I thought, you know what? That would fill up one full day and make it easy on my schedule. So there was about 7 or 8 of us that said, yeah, we'll go skydiving. So off we went. And, skydiving in the middle in the mid 70s is not like today. They don't, back then, well, in today's world, you get attached to a professional skydiver,
Yeah.
and the two of you just kind of jump out of the plane. Well, back then, they didn't do that. So you actually had to crawl, well, not really crawl, but sit in position and get yourself out to where you were standing on the little plate that was on top of the wheel or the tire of this little plane. And there was a strut that came from the bottom of the wing to the body of the plane. And you actually had to kind of climb out, grab onto that strut, and get in position to shove off. And you had a static line that went from your chute to the pilot's chair. And thank God I had a static line, because when I jumped out, pushed off, it's like, I feel like I blanked out, and all of a sudden I woke up and I was just floating down. And, one of the funniest parts of the story is you're 2,800 feet up in the air. This skydiving place was out in southern Indiana, out in the middle of farmland. And the guys that ran this place, they said, look for the red barn roof, and that's what you want to come down for. Well, I'm 2,800 feet in the air. I'm in the countryside. I look down and I see 300 red barn roofs, and I have no idea which one is mine. And when I hit the ground, they always put in your little log book, the date and how high you were, and it says, how far were you from the target? And mine just says out. Because I was like a mile from the facility. I just floated halfway down southern Indiana.
They had to send out a search crew to come and find you. Like, what happened to Milt?
They came in a pickup truck and found me.
Oh man, when you were talking about crawling out on the wing of that plane, I was starting to get the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, but it was an experience, and that was the so to this day I've rode in a plane one more time than I've landed, so that's pretty good.
Nice, you're 50-50.
Yes.
Yeah, well that's awesome, and we're winding it down to the end, but I always like to ask a few more questions. Do you have any favorite business conferences you go to, podcasts you listen to, or like favorite tools and software?
Yeah, I would say the conference that we attend would probably the best one for us as a manufacturer of material handling. We go to the MAHITA conference, the Material Handling Equipment Distributors Association, because that's where so many of the distributors go every year. So that's been a really good conference for us. They have a lot of great speakers. They have an economist, the Bolio brothers with ITR Economics are always there. They do an exhibitor showcase so that the manufacturers can show their wares and the distributors walk through. That's been a very good one. I never miss your podcast though, Mark. So I'll have to go with that.
That's your favorite podcast, yeah.
Favorite
Awesome.
podcast. And then, some years ago, WireCrafters went through the 80-20 process. And 80% of your business comes from 20% of your distributors. And it was actually about 10 years ago next month that we started down that journey. And we have held on to everything about the 80-20 process for the past 10 years. the management team, we review it every month as a team. We meet for a half a day once a month, and we go through our 80-20 process and how it forms our business. And it's those principles we really feel like have taken us to another level. So that was something that worked out extremely well for us.
Yeah, well, that's great. Well, Mondays with Milt became my favorite YouTube video channel about a week ago when I saw it. So, Milt, this has been an absolute pleasure. So, the best way to get in touch with Wirecrafters is really through a distributor. And the other thing is, I would say, for we've got our listeners or their end users and distributors is probably a combination of both. But checking out Mondays with Milt, it's like you said, there's tons of opportunities in any operation and safety. To me, the safety thing is one of the biggest things. We want people to be safe in an environment. But this has been an absolute pleasure. You're tons of fun. I love the YouTube channel. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and wisdom and knowledge. This has been a pleasure.
Well, thanks for having me, Mark. I've enjoyed it myself very much.
Thanks for listening to the Tao of Pizza podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.